welcome to this week's episode of Off the Fence, brought to you in association with BoyleSports. We are your weekly go-to jumps digital programme where we give you the lowdown on the jump season from now all the way through until the Cheltenham Festival. As always, please do hit subscribe on our YouTube channel so that you don't miss a single episode of Off the Fence going forward. And this is now where it starts to get very juicy, because coming up on this show, we'll be giving you our anti-post tips for the Cheltenham Festival, some of them anyway, but we have to do all the other bits and pieces first, which includes, of course, reviewing the action with the boys, Tony Keenan and Barry Geraghty. Tony, quick check-in with you. How's your week been?
Yeah, all good. Kind of very quiet on the Cheltenham front in terms of having bets, but a back 4 horses in the last week, so we're going to give, I think, all 4 of those a mention. I think Barry has a few of his own, so we'll see how that goes.
Terrific. We're going from sort of 0 to 60 pretty quickly on this show. Barry, how's the last 7 days since we spoke?
Yes, quite a week, but brilliant racing over the weekend between Sandown and Naas, so lots of enjoyable stuff there.
Okay, well, brilliant wouldn't have been the adjective I'd have gone for, actually. I thought it was relatively tame, but seeing as you've labelled it as brilliant, we will kick off our What Happened Where section with looking at the action at Sandown, Barry, and we will start with the Tolworth Hurdle, won by Tahmuras for the Paul Nicholls team. But for me, this was a bit of a race that fell apart due to the favourite not really showing up at all, and he's now 12 to 1 for the Supreme Tahmuras with BoyleSports, and I don't want anything to do with him, I don't think, in the Supreme.
Yeah, it wasn't a vintage race, there's no doubt about that, but he was a good individual. I thought Harry Cobden gave him a great ride. He's a big raw horse. He was untidy at the last 2, but Harry was patient and he saved him and conserved him, and he won well at the death, albeit it wasn't a strong race, as we said. But he is a horse for the future, and that was how Harry described him. He thought he had a big future and over fences as well. How he'd put him into the Supreme picture, he said he couldn't see him out of the first 4, which you couldn't say was a vote of confidence. But he's probably just short of that level at this stage, but could be a horse for the future. Paul Nicholls, via Megan Nicholls' daughter, mentioned maybe a trip to Kelso, which would be for the Moor Battle Hurdle in February instead of the festival, albeit that Noel Feely seemed keen to go for the Supreme. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'd say he has a little gap to bridge maybe with Facile Vega. Not that he's exciting everyone at the minute.
Yeah, just as a side note comment here, Harry Cobden having such a terrific time of it, still such a young lad. For me, he's riding, you mentioned the ride he gave this horse in the Tolworth. I think he's still getting better and better, Harry. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. He was brilliant. He was brilliant on Braveman's Game as well. Same thing, just sitting, patiently waiting, saving. He's not looking for any extra at any stage. He's just keep conserving. It's there's only one winning post, and Harry knows where it is. He isn't in a rush to get to the front. He isn't in a rush to commit. He saves his horse and delivers him at the right time.
Okay, let's move on to Love Envoi, winning the listed race at Sandown. I mean, she wins a lot of races, this mare, and she's very much loved by the owners and the Harry Fry team. She's got a pretty good following behind her, and she's now 4 to 1 for the Mares Hurdle, Barry, with BoyleSports off the back of this latest win. We might see her again before the festival even, but I mean, she's a worthy second favourite in this market, isn't she?
Oh, definitely, I think so. She's 7 from 8. She's been really good. She won the festival last year. She's a really good mare. She seems to be improving as well. And Noel Feely touched on it afterwards, how well Johnny Burke is doing on her, because she's getting more and more relaxed, and that's helping her in the finish. She's definitely a mare who's improving the whole time. She's rated 144. Going into this, the handicapper may raise her. Just it's a reflection of her ability. Marie's Rock is 150. She's a year older, has more experience. But definitely Love Envoi is a mare on the way up and deserves to be second favourite.
I mean, it's all if and buts and everything, but does the Mares Hurdle trip really suit her? If in an ideal world, or dare I say if there was no Constitution Hill, could you have seen her even being pitched in a Champion Hurdle?
Maybe, but that just could be a step too far at this stage. Okay. I think she's a gap. She might have a little bit of catching up to do on Marie's Rock, and it could be a step further again. But no, she's definitely 2.5 mile on nice ground. If she gets that in Cheltenham, I'd say it would be ideal.
All right, let's move across to Ireland, Tony, and bring you in at this stage. We'll focus in on the action at Naas. The Lawlers of Naas Novices Hurdle saw champ Kiely win his Grade 1. He's now 6-1 for the Ballymore with BoyleSports off the back of this debut Grade 1 win. But again, Danny Mullins from the front, he's lethal in these situations, isn't he?
Seems to be. Going forward seems to suit this horse as well. He resented settling in the Royal Bond, over raced far too much, but going forward suited them here as it had in Tipperary and Galway before that. I'd be a little bit worried, is he quite one-dimensional, and how he'll be able to cope with trying to make all at Cheltenham and a Ballymore. Ballymore's probably going to be a biggish field, very competitive, as Facile Vegas scares a few horses off that may potentially run the Supreme. I do think Champ Kiely was very much suited to being Naas, not necessarily going left-handed, because he wasn't playing to shift right at hurdles, and that actually would be a concern with going to Cheltenham, an even tighter track, and the fact that there were 4 hurdles taken out yesterday would possibly have been in his favour. But Naas tends to be quite a front-runner's track. The straight is actually, it just seems to be very hard for horses to come from off the pace there. Nothing really in the race on some that could get in the bar down rising, so I think he was suited by the sort of configuration of the track. He wasn't really powering away from Irish Point late. He made a mistake at, I think, what was the second last, the usual fourth last, and the favourite was just very disappointing. Grange Clare West. Now he has to go down as a little bit of a fragile horse. Now, he had excuses. He was coughing post race, but I don't think this is Ballymore winning form unless Champ Kiely's going to be able to step up again. I think there's better challengers, and there may be better challengers within his own yard.
Okay, interesting thoughts in regard to that horse then. What about Appreciate It, Tony? Obviously a race tinged with sadness due to the fatal fall of Top Bandit and the injury that then happened to Jack Kennedy. But in terms of the winner, Appreciate It, again, another solid performance from him over fences. I'm not getting too carried away with him at this stage.
No, I think that's fair. I think he was better than a Punchestown. You don't really know because of what happened to his main market rival, but he looked a bit better. His jumping was pretty good. He's the kind of horse that would take a little bit of getting fit. He's quite big. Testing ground at Naas at 2 miles probably would have suited him on Sunday. Yeah, it was a little bit of a step forward. I do suspect with him though that he will be better if he goes up and trip. Like, this has looked the way with him all along. The Supreme that he won was on pretty deep ground. Some of his impressive wins there as a novice hurdler were in testing ground at Leopardstown. Although you do get the sense with Willie Mullins he is going to stick to the minimum trip until he gets beaten. Now, whether he is going to have another run before Cheltenham, I don't know. He has a lot of options for the Irish Arkle with Al Fabiolo and Dicer Dynamo also. So I don't know, does he want to run the 3 of them against each other at the Dublin Race to Festival? We'll just have to see.
Interesting. Well, in regards to Willie's novice chasers, we do have a very good question coming up on that, so stay tuned very shortly. Barry, just a quick mention about the race from you. Obviously, the aftermath with, as I say, the fatal fall to Top Bandit and then the injury to Jack Kennedy. Your heart goes out to Jack Kennedy. I mean, how can a young man, how is it fair that he's suffered so many injuries and yet he keeps coming back? He's won so many Grade 1s and now he's got another pretty serious injury to overcome.
Yeah, definitely. It was a tough one and really tough on connections of Top Bandit. But Jack has, I texted him earlier on to see who he was. He has an undisplaced fracture on both the tibia and fibula. So both bones in his shin bone, if you like. But the trouble with the tibia is a weight bearing bone, so it's a little bit slower to heal. And it's just a case of when you can put it under full pressure. He's probably tight enough on time between here and the festival to make it. He has age on his side. And unfortunately for Jack, as I said to him in the text, he knows more about these things than I do at this stage. So he's had a really tough time, but he was leading the championship, 18 clear of Paul Townend. He was teed up in a nice position to maybe win his first championship. So a really tough blow for Jack. I hope he can make it back to the festival because he's a top class rider and a great ambassador for the sport and all.
Yeah, he really is. So best wishes to him and condolences, obviously, to the connections of Top Bandit. Let's move on to question time. This is our first of this season of Off the Fence anyway, and we've got some very good questions in here, all sort of in and around some big name horses. The first of which, though, Barry, we'll come to you first, I think, with this one. And the question is, how would you rank Willie Mullins's 2 to 2 mile, 2.5 mile novice chasers? And how would you split them between the Arkle and the Turners? So to list them off, we're looking at the aforementioned Appreciate It, Dysart Dynamo, El Fabiole, Saint Wad, James de Burley, and Allegor de Vassi the Mare. Any of these horses would be an absolute top notcher and a real star of any stable. So as always, it's pretty bonkers that they're all in the 1 yard. I guess, Barry, who of those names do you see as proper genuine 2-milers at this stage?
Yes, I'd say El Fabiola, who was a neck behind John Bon at the Inter Festival last season over hurdles and a 2-mile novice hurdle. I'd see him as being a real 2-miler. His jumping was adequate in various. He'll improve the experience. He got a bit low and rubbed a few. Dysart Dynamo, on the other hand, I was really impressed with him. He seemed more relaxed, albeit he did go hard from the front in what was a non-event. But he seemed more relaxed. He's a horse he's developed a lot physically. He's a big, imposing horse now. Jumped really well for it. He fell at the third last in the Supreme when still travelling last season. But he was a bit brave, a bit erratic over hurdles and a bit of a rush. But he seemed very measured, lots of scope, really good. I'd expect a big performance of him going for the Dublin Racing Festival. And if you look into his form, he probably don't have a lot to go on because he disappointed after that fall in Cheltenham. But when he won the Moscow Flyer, which is a grade 2 novice hurdle in Punchestown, he won at 11 seconds and 12 seconds faster than the two maidens ran that day. So that's a seriously high level that he has raced at. I think he's a horse with a big future. For me, he could be the one for the Arkle. And I just wonder if he does put in that performance or level of performance that I think he's capable of, would that maybe steer Appreciated towards the 2.5? Obviously he's a former pointer. He won a bumper over 2 mile 4 in Leopardstown in Christmas 2019, so he is possible up on trip. James de Burley likewise put in a good performance at Ferios. He'd enjoy the trip. But the other one there who's probably more likely to go for the mare's chase, but Geraghty de Vassi, really impressive in Limerick. She's only had one run. I'm sure she'll get another run between now and the festival. But Concertista went to the festival last season as favoured for the mare's chase with only 2 runs, and her jumping on the day was found out by the more experienced opposition. So I wonder, is there a little bit of thought on whether this one should be going for the Turners against novices, against their own grade, rather than taking on the more experienced mares?
Oh, that is very interesting. So Barry, and so Tony, we know you agree given what you've already... we know you disagree with what Barry's saying given what you've already said about Appreciate It, because you expect him to stay at 2 miles until he's beaten at that distance. So same sort of question to you then, Tony. Of those horses we're talking about in that group, who else do you reckon is a genuine 2-miler versus being able to step up and trip at this stage in their career?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer your question. Barry's answered that there. I'm going to be a real politician here and answer a totally different question.
Okay.
I had a look at the Arkle there. The Arkle is one race I would have no interest in having a bet in at all at the moment. It's too competitive. You've a favourite there. First of all, the John Bon plus the 3 Willie Mullins horses that are trading in around the 4, 5, 6 to 1 mark are taking up about 83% of the market. And there's still another 3 or 4 in it there that are kind of live chances. Like John Bon, he might be a little bit short, but you couldn't call him a terrible favourite. I thought Boot Hill gave his form a nice boost now over Christmas on ground that he wouldn't have liked. You have the 3 Willie Mullins horses there, and maybe the Dublin Racing Festival will clarify that, where they fit in, based on what Barry says, and I would agree. Like Dysart Dynamo looked the more assured jumper. El Fabiolo looked like a horse that could crack off one. They're novice chasers. That Irish Arkle, rich history in that race of the full field never completing because they're novice chasers unexposed. So one of them will probably tip over. That's generally what you have. But then you have a few sort of ones in there that you couldn't rule out, like Banbridge had excuses in the Drinmores already done over course and distance. Fieldor had excuses at Christmas, would still have a bit of a life. Saint-Ouen, he's won his grade 1. So the Arkle would be the kind of race that I would have no interest in having a bet in at the minute. Could definitely wait for that. But we'll come to the other novice chases later. I have much more interest in them. I think they're much more appealing betting races at the moment.
Okay.
Just on that, Vanessa, I agree with Tony as regards the Arkle, but the one horse we forgot to mention is Sir Gerhard, and he would have a big bearing as well on what could happen in the Turners if he does turn up, and that's obviously a big if, and time is getting short for him to get the level of experience he'd need. Plus, if you take into account how novice he was on his second run over hurdles, which was in a grade 1, he didn't jump brilliantly in Leopardstown that wet day, so he's a horse who will probably benefit from experience, and whether he has the time to get that would be a big question.
Okay. Tony, now I'm nervous that you're not going to answer any of these questions, but the next question for you is, which bumper horse has most taken your eye this season? Seems an open year.
Yeah, very open year. Maybe start with the big picture stuff with the champion bumper. Very different to the last two seasons. Really at this stage of the season or shortly after, the race could be distilled down to two big contenders. You had Gilcrit and Sir Gerhard 2 years ago. Last year you had Facile Vega and American Mike. It looks nothing related to that this year. The two big yards have had, I think, issues of their own. Like Gordon Elliott went into Leopardstown there on December 29th with 3 horses that had won bumpers last time out, and the 3 of them weren't mapped. So he's probably a bit edgy after that what sort of strength is his bumper team. That they really were very well beaten in, but was effectively a graded bumper. Willie Mullins himself went through a really quiet time there, kind of from late October to late December. I don't think he had a bumper winner. He had one that was thrown out now in Punchestown, Lecky Watson, but there wasn't a winner between those 2 months. Now, you would be expecting the floodgates to open. He had a few winners over Christmas. Half decent winner there, Cork, with the mare Fancy Girl on Saturday. So maybe there's more depth to come with him. But there really are. There's loads of interesting ones. There was a horse won at Punchestown called Slade Steel. Henry de Bromhead was talking champion bumper straight after. Now he was well touted before the race. Like Henry de Bromhead basically never runs a horse in the champion bumper. I think he's had one in his lifetime. Super Sunday. I think that was back in 2015, 2016. That form looks quite solid. The Willie Mullins horse that was second was quite well back. The other Willie Mullins horse in third was one that acquired from another yard, was really strong in the market. The horse that was fourth, Edward O'Grady's, went very close to winning at Fairy House on New Year's Day, a mile clear of the thirds. That form looks okay. You also thought the bumper on St Stephen's Day looked quite a hot race. Pearl Fee of Gordon Elliott's just beaten Willie Mullins. Did I ask you that? And I think you could make cases for both of those being better than the form. Elliott's horse kind of got chopped off in his run and probably did well to win the circumstances. And Paddy Mullins, I'm going to say he got a plutarded in this race. I think Barry was the one to point this out last year at Christmas. A plutard making the move too early. I think Paddy Mullins has said himself he made the move a bit early on this horse. Just got there a bit too soon. Pretty green when he hit the front, but he plugged on well. 2 of them pulling clear. And also he was saying recently that horse wasn't long in the yard with them, so there might be more improvement to come with him. And the other one, this horse might be a little bit ground dependent, trained by Willie Mullins' Chosen Witness. He was just really impressive down in Limerick, winning on bad ground, kind of coming off a point to point background. So yeah, there'd be the 3 or 4. I haven't even mentioned Tom Mullins' horse that won Facile Mode. We haven't heard anything about someone buying into him as yet, but we believe he's on the sale track. So yeah, really deep champion bumper. I'm sure Willie Mullins has a few more to come out yet.
Okay, well that was a pretty detailed answer to our bumper question then. And Tony, we're going to move on. Next question can come your way first too. Could Shishkin's flipped palette explain his poor Tingle Creek run, and where next for him? What do you think is the next step for Shishkin, Tony?
Well, sure, flip palette is just something that needs a bit of a breeding operation. That sounds minor, but just interested in Barry's thoughts on this. I think we see this time and again when sometimes these star horses have very hard races. The nature of these grade 1s, grade 2s, that they're well run, proper tests, proper races. But there's been loads of examples of this. Like obviously Altior Surname was one. Even if you go back to Size and John, when he won the John Doherty Rambank Quick at Leopardstown, Christmas is never the same. That good horse that was for the Albert Bartlett last year, Hillcrest, backed up a bit quick. It takes time to overcome them, and you kind of wonder, are the horses ever right afterwards? Now Shishkin is the race on Ascot last year, he has this kind of bone condition afterwards. Now he's picking up breathing issues. I don't know, Barry, from your own experience riding and stuff like that in these real hot races, do some of these horses, do they never overcome them, or what do you think?
Yeah, it does happen, but it's an individual thing, I suppose. Shishkin is a horse who's always raced behind the bridle plenty. And albeit it was his first run, it was late enough in the season that I would say the level of work he had in going there probably would be high enough. So I wouldn't say he would have needed the run desperately. I don't think it was the grueler that Altior got against Surname. So I think he can go back out of this. As regards the wind, as you mentioned, Tony, it's only a small enough operation. He'll miss 10 days, and I suppose the Ascot Chase could be an option for him on the 18th of February. But the only downside to that is its proximity to Cheltenham is only over 3.5 weeks. So a little bit of a quick turnaround, not ideal. But if the Ryanair or somewhere the Gold Cup is the direction he's going, he'll have to get a run in.
Okay, Tony, the next question is for you. This one is from Mark Jordan, and he asks, how many winners will Willie Mullins have at the Cheltenham Festival this year?
Probably a lot, I'd say. Look, last 5 years, Willie's gone 7, 4, 7, 6 and 10 last season. Is he stronger than ever this season? He probably is. Looking at the graded races only now today, I think his implied winners, that's looking at the odds and how many winners are they going to produce. So something like, let's say Allaho is 2-1 at the minute. That's 0.33 of a winner. So he's coming out about 5.5, 6 winners at the minute. I think that's a bit low because it's not really factoring in the National Hunt Chase RSA. You have the same horse popping up twice there, Gaillard de Manille. The Ryanaire's a little bit of a up in the air race with Blue Lord and Allaho there, and the bumper needs to be tidied up. I would say he never really wins a handicap chase. I don't think he's ever won a handicap chase at the Cheltenham Festival. He's usually good for at least one handicap hurdle winner a year at it. I'd set the line probably about 8.5. Might even be a bit low at that. That's what I'm thinking at the moment.
Wow, okay. Barry, next question for you. This is from Marcus, who asks, what do you think of Champion Hurdle or retirement for Honeysuckle? The interview with Peter Maloney at Naas on Sunday revealed plenty. This is obviously where racing manager Kenny Alexander said that Honeysuckle would either run the Champion Hurdle or be retired, e.g. cutting out the option of the Mares Hurdle. And Marcus wants to know what you think of that, Barry.
Oh, I think that is the right call. She's obviously dual champion hurdle winner, brilliant mare, has to be respected, and it'll be just interesting to see how she turns up at the Dublin Racing Festival. As I mentioned before, I don't think she ran far below her true form in the Hatton's Grace, so she doesn't necessarily need to bounce back. I think she's a better mare on better ground. Leopardstown will suit her better back to 2 mile. But she would have to be in her A game to win or be competitive in the Champion Hurdle, or to win or be competitive in the Mares Hurdle, because there's plenty of depth in that. So I think it's the right decision to go and try and defend her crown and see how she goes. But that's if she gets there. We'll have to see how she does in Leopardstown first.
Yeah, it was music to my ears to hear that. But like you say, with the first box that needs to be ticked is Leopardstown, because otherwise, if she doesn't show up there, then it'll be retirement, I would imagine anyway. But anyway, time will tell. Cheltenham Time has asked, question number 6. Barry, this is for you again. It's definitely not for Tony. Which horse, apart from the obvious Constitution Hill, would Barry like to ride at this year's festival?
Well, there's probably been 2 superstars of last season, and one was Constitution Hill and the other is Galloping the Champ. So if I was to have a go, I would love a go on Galloping the Champ. Loved how he settled in the John Durkin. That opens up doors for him in the future. Open trip, obviously the Gold Cup being the target. But you would have to, I'd be waiting for the day before I'd be getting involved, because if the ground does go up soft in the Gold Cup, that adds a massive layer on stamina. And he's asked to travel so well and there's lots of pace. He wouldn't just want to be found out on too soft a ground, where on good ground in the Gold Cup, he could be flying around there in 4th gear all the way. So he's the one I'd want to be on. I think he's a gorgeous horse. I'd love him, but I'd be waiting until close to the time to make an investment.
Okay, interesting. Question number 7, Tony, this one is for you. One horse trainer and jockey under the radar who you think might do well at this year's festival, asks Warren Barlow.
I think the nature of the sport at the minute is there's very few under the radar horses and trainers. Let Barry deal the one with the jockeys. I do think Barry Connell has a few interesting horses this season, particularly the novices. Marine Nationale got a form boost of sorts there at the weekend at Naas, and I was talking about Goodland last week, so I'll go with him. I'd like to see him get a winner at Cheltenham.
Okay, what about you, Barry?
Yeah, well, jockeys, obviously Jack Kennedy, there's a question mark or a doubt about him making the festival, which opens the door then for Jordan Gainford and Sam Ewing. Jordan rode a brilliant race on the Shunter 2 years ago at the festival when he won a good handicap chase there. So I think Jordan's a very good rider. And likewise, Sam Ewing, we saw a brilliant effect in Chepstow on Peregrine Run, and then the day later in the Welsh Champion Hurdle in Fossglass on Effernock Fizz. So 2 very capable riders. Sam is only maybe 19 and Jordan probably 21 or 2, so lads in the early stages of their career, but definitely very, very capable. And if Jack isn't in Cheltenham, or even if Jack isn't in Cheltenham, there'll still be chances with spare rides, second strings and whatnot from Gordon's as well. So I think 2 lads with plenty of action.
Yeah, we might see a few people maybe getting their first taste of Cheltenham Festival glory. Let's move on to tipping time. Again, another new section for this season. This is where we're going to get stuck into a few anti-post bets for the Cheltenham Festival. Both Tony and Barry have put forward horses that they think might represent a bit of value, but I'll let them make the case for them. Tony, we will come to you first. You've put forward 4 selections. As you say, we haven't had anything in this regard, and now bang, you've come to us with 4. So take it away, please, Tony.
Yeah, just having a little look back at the stuff from Christmas and looking at the markets, kind of ignoring them a lot before Christmas, but we're kind of at that stage now where they're a bit more interested in them. I'll just go through the 4 and then maybe give the cases. I'm going to go with James de Burley for the Turners, Gaillard de Meny for the Broadway, talk about that in a minute, Scarlet and Dove for the Mayors, and for Favori du Chamdou for the Albert Bartlett. Look, I think part of the way of finding a bit of anti-post juice in the prices is guessing where Willie Mullins is going to run his various novices. I'm quite happy that the Turner sets up well for James de Burley. He's actually as good a hurdler as any of the novice chasers Willie Mullins has this season per official ratings. He was rated 160 when he came over from France, and we're probably, well, I'm not no expert on, in fact I don't know anything about his French form, but he seemed to be near the top or at the top of their hurdlers that season. He came over for the Champion Hurdle in his first run, didn't show really anything but was very strong in the market, and then he went to Punchestown and put in a really good effort when second to Classical Dream, travelled very strongly through the race. I just thought he didn't quite get home over what is a very easy 3 miles at Punchestown. That race actually isn't even over 3 miles, I think it's 2.7 and a bit. He just was losing ground on Classical Dream from the last hurdle. So he does look like a 2.5 miler to me. I thought his chase debut in Fairyhouse was really good. Jumping was excellent. There was one mistake, good time. And this race, the Turners, unlike the Arkle, just doesn't look like there's going to be an awful lot of runners. You've Matey Potter at 4-1 at the top of the market. Respect him, very good in the Drinmore, but he's already got one disappointment at Cheltenham on his CV. Then you've a lot of horses that aren't going to run, and you've James de Burley, who looks kind of made for it, so I'll be quite happy with him at 7 or 8-1. Gaillard de Meny, I'm just going to take a chance that he's a Grade 1 horse and he's actually going to go for the Grade 1 race. He was third in this race last year, and it looks a much stronger version of that race, with L'Homme Press winning it, High Senior second, another Grade 1 winner in fourth, Capodanno. And I thought Gaillard de Meny had things just go arseways in the race from last year. He got behind off a steady pace, made a couple of mistakes late, and ran as well. I think he had divide the Jigginstown Fall at the second last. Ran as well as could be expected. He looks a much sharper model this year. Excellent run in the Drinmore. He's a bit workmanlike at Leopardstown at Christmas, but I don't think he's the type of horse to win too impressively. And I think Paul Towner was keen to do 2 things with him. Then he wanted to keep him out wide, which looked to be a bit better ground, and he wanted to get him a lead. And I think just these 2 races are chalk and cheese. He's 7-4 for the National Hunt Chase. The owner has another horse that could possibly go for that, Ramillies. Willie Mullins does not seem to have an awful lot for this 3 mile race at the moment. Manella Cocuno just ruled out for the season there this evening, and Classic Getaway, we don't know where he is. I looked through a stable tour there from early in the season. He just doesn't seem to have another horse suitable for it. So I'm quite happy to take the chance of it, the one that he will go for the better race, and I think if he wasn't playing for it, he'd be the favourite without any doubt. Mares Chase, won't belabour this, talked about this horse last week. Quite keen to take on the 2 novices at the top of the market. Both of them have looked very good, but both of them are quite inexperienced. Scarlet and Dove has the experience, went close in it last year. Good winner on New Year's Day again, quite a good time. Think she's going to be better going left-handed. Brian Cooper struck up a real good partnership with her. She is a little bit tricky, but seems to have figured out how to ride her. Kind of small field might suit her, like to be kept away from others. And again, it's just quite a thin race. I'd be happy with her. And then lastly, Favori du Chamdou. Albert Bartlett market, nothing really standing out in it yet, but he's been racking up the experience. He's the kind of older type of staying novice. He's got plenty of runs under his belt that sometimes suits this race. His performance in Limerick at Christmas, I thought, was really good visually, but it was very strong on the clock. Now, I've been talking about maybe going against clock horses here and there. it's all to do with the market reaction. Like I was talking with John Bunn a few weeks ago. Like John Bunn was 6-4 for the Arkle with loads of credible challengers. Where this horse is kind of 12-1, 14-1 second favourite for the Albert Barton in a race where nothing else stands out. Bar Hidden Valley Lake was pretty good, but is quite inexperienced. Gordon Elliott has never won the Albert Barton. He had some horrible luck on it though, in fairness, like Ginto. No More Heroes, Trouble in Running, Fury Road when Very Close Commander Fleet was seconded. The type of horse he buys, the type of horse he trains, like there would be Albert Bartlett types, staying types. So yeah, so that'd be my 4. Quite a bit now. It might go another 4 weeks before we've another few, but I think they're all kind of overpriced at the minute, and hopefully one of them might give us a rattle.
Okay, love it. And so of Tony's 4, you've got Gaylord de Manille has been price boosted to 8-1 for the Brown Advisory with BoyleSports. James de Burley and the Turners 10-1 price boost with BoyleSports. Favra de however that you say it in the Albert Bartlett is 16s with the price boost with BoyleSports, and then Scarlet and Dove is 13-2 price boosted with BoyleSports. So plenty of value for you, and you need to head to the BoyleSports website to take advantage of these price boosts. And of course, the same rules are going to apply to Barry's 3 selections. Please take it away, Barry. Who has caught your eye at this early stage in the anti-post markets?
Well, I've been watching Gaelic Warrior. I saw him at Tremor, but I'd been waiting to see him come back because he's a horse who really excites me. He obviously went down by a short head to Brazil in the Boodles Hurdle last year, and Brazil has franked that form since and done really well. But Gaelic Warrior, he has the option here or the Supreme, but I can't see him taking on Facile Vega. And a lot of people are crabbing Facile Vega and his performance in Leopardstown and the level of his form and the bumper form. But if you go back to his bumper win at the Dublin Racing Festival in February, it clocked a 3-second faster time than Vauban beat Fildor and Cariel Temps, I think is what they call him. So it's just a level of how strong that is a strong time against a quality field. So I think people are looking to find fault in Facile Vega. I don't think it's there. I think he'd be very hard to beat. So I'd imagine Gaelic Warrior will go for the Ballymore. And like Dysart Dynamo we mentioned earlier, physically he's improved. He's a big robust horse now. I think lots of scope, lots of potential. He won his maiden by 86 lengths, which never happens. It mightn't have been a vintage race, but you'd have to be impressed with the style he did. So I really like him. Hermes Allen I think is a smart horse, but I wouldn't mind opposing him with Gaelic Warrior. Then I have Appreciated, who we mentioned earlier on. Dysart Dynamo, El Fabiolo I see going for the Arkle, so I think the door is open for this fella for the Turners. Obviously a high class horse. He won the Supreme really well 2 years ago. He hasn't been asked a question over fences, and he schooled around Nace. I thought his jumping was sharper. He's going the right way. He can only do what he can do to beat what's been put in front of him. But he's had 2 nice schools around, and maybe he'll get another run between now and Cheltenham. And then my third one is what do I have for the third one? I have Blood Destiny.
You do, yeah.
Blood Destiny, who was Blood Destiny, who won in Cork, really impressive, bolted up on the day, jumped really well, flew the last 3. The second horse has won since, the 5th horse has won since, and probably above all, but Paul Townend, when he was asked after the race, what did he think? And he said, this adds close to the top. So that speaks for itself. So I think this one has good value. Obviously, they've got the favourite with Lassie Mouth, but I think there's great value in Blood Destiny, and that might shorten as well if this fella turns up at the Dublin Racing Festival and puts in a performance there.
Okay, Blood Destiny currently 14-1 with BoyleSports for the triumph. So plenty of value in there, courtesy of the boys. Do head over to the BoyleSports website, and for the price boost horses, please check out their specials tab where you will find these offers. They've been very generous, so thanks as always to BoyleSports. And lads, that I think wraps up the show. We've rattled through all the action there. Thank you to you two as always. Thank you to you viewers out there as well. Please do hit subscribe, give us a like, give us a retweet, whatever you want, and of course send in your comments as well. We read them all specifically on YouTube, so do get involved with them. But for now, thank you very much for watching. That was Off the Fence.